Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be listening from. My spoon shines and my spoon flowers. If you're here, that means that you have met me in my favorite little corner of the internet. I'm Sunny D, RN, BSN. 20-year crony who's pretty much seen it all. Grab your broth, your Gatorade, whatever your spoons will allow. And baby, welcome to Spoon Space. Hey, my sweet babies. Today we're doing something a little different. Normally, Spoon Space feels like we're sipping tea together, with a little sass and some education and maybe a few laughs in there. But today, I got to be real honest with you. It's going to be a little heavier. This one feels more like a lesson than a chit chat. What we need to talk about today is racism in healthcare. And I don't mean just the rude nurses or the bad bedside manners. I mean the systemic, life or death, policy level kind of racism that's so baked into our medicine, it's still costing Black people their lives in 2025. And I know some of y'all are thinking, girl, heard it all before. And you know what? I said I wasn't going to be silly, but I guess I am who I am. And I know you have heard it all before, but girl, you might not have heard how it plays out in real time in other Black families' lives, in hospitals across the country, and even in my own life. So today we're not sugarcoating shit, okay? We're pulling receipts, we're telling true stories, and naming the ways this system has failed us. Because the truth is that silence can keep us sick. And baby, as you know, I am not trying to stay quiet for anybody, especially when it comes to advocating for rights and things that I have personally experienced. Because this is not a blanket statement for things that are happening all the time, everywhere. It is something to show that this is systemic. This is something that does occur and it shouldn't be happening at all. From the very beginning, Black bodies were used and abused in the name of, quote, science, end quote. Women were experimented on without anesthesia. Families had their loved ones' blood studied without treatment. Cells were taken without consent and used to fuel billion-dollar research. And here's the wild part. Those aren't just dusty history book stories. The same exact patterns are still alive in 2025. And that's why Black women are still 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. That's why pain is still undertreated in Black patients compared to white ones. This is systemic, y'all. It's not just something that we read about. It's not something that we made up. It's something that we have to live. And that's exactly why I need to share not just the history, but the modern echoes of it. Because when you hear what happened to Keira Johnson, when you hear what happened to me personally, you'll see that this isn't really just theory. It's real life and it's happening right here, right now. Let me bring this closer to now. In 2016, Keira Johnson, a 39-year-old Black mother, wife, and entrepreneur, checked into Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles to deliver her second child. On paper, she was perfect, healthy, educated, insured. She gave birth by C-section to a beautiful baby boy. But within hours, things went completely downhill. Keira started showing signs of internal bleeding. Her husband, Charles, begged the staff to take her back to surgery. He could see that she was fading, and he begged for 10 hours. What did the doctor say? They told him that she wasn't a priority, she was fine, and that they would get to her. But when they finally took her back, unfortunately, it was too late. She was hemorrhaging the entire time, right there in a major hospital, in front of her husband, after delivering a healthy baby boy. Charles Johnson has been fighting ever since, not just for his wife's memory, but to prove the obvious, that Keira didn't die because her body failed her. She simply died because nobody listened. Nobody listened to her pain, her symptoms, or her husband's pleas. They were just dismissed. That's unfortunately the pattern, y'all. That's not some isolated story. That's what systemic racism in healthcare looks like in real time. Now, let's make this a little more personal because I don't know these stories from the outside. I've actually lived them. A few years ago, I had an abscess removed, and if you know Crohn's, then you know that abscesses are sometimes a part of the deal, especially if you have hidradenitis. After this surgery, the wound was packed so tightly that it was way too awkward and uncomfortable to get it out myself. Tylenol simply was not touching the pain, so I just went to the ER to ask for one thing: a little pain relief so that they could moisten it and take out that packing without me having to pass out from pain. But instead of them listening to me, do you know that that doctor kept pushing Haldol on me? And Haldol is an antipsychotic that is sometimes used for nausea, but I told him very clearly that I'm not nauseous. I'm in pain, need a little help, and he just completely ignored me. He looked at my chart and saw that I had frequent ER visits due to Crohn's and hidradenitis and just simply decided that I was exaggerating. After being dismissed for so long, I did it myself, y'all. I put something on the end of that packing strip. I held it down to the bed and I stood up as fast as I could so that gravity could just yank it out. And I don't want that to be too graphic, but I do want you to know that these are real things that are happening. I'm sure that I yelped or made some kind of noise, but nobody came to check on me except for my sweet husband who was in the room with me, but not a nurse, not a doctor, nobody else. And you want to know what the kicker is, y'all? I'm actually pretty sure that this is the same doctor who, years earlier, gave me antibiotics that I didn't need after my ostomy surgery, telling me that I probably had an infection. And if I had not followed up with my surgeon who told me to immediately stop those because I could have developed C. diff, girl, I would have been in severe dehydration and severe diarrhea as well. So the crazy thing is, this is the same doctor, same type of dismissal, the same bias, just years later, completely assuming that a Black woman with a long history of a chronic illness is exaggerating, being dramatic, or drug seeking. The thing about the ER, though, is that like when you're in there, you don't get to choose that doctor. That's not your primary care or your specialist. You're kind of stuck with whoever comes on the shift that day. And if that person carries a strong bias, whether they know it or not, you can feel it and you instantly pay that price. And sometimes bias isn't just about what. This week's mini spoon break is going to be us taking two very good, long, cleansing deep breaths together. So if you'll join me in 3, 2, 1, I will tell you when to breathe in, hold it, let all of that out. We're going to do one more. I need you to breathe in very deeply. Hold that, hold that, hold that, and breathe out. May those cleansing breaths, those 2 deep cleansing breaths, help you glide through the rest of this episode. Release some of that tension and let's get back to it. Happens in the ER. It's also about the resources that we are given or denied. And I'll give you another example about this. For a while, I had a client who also had an ostomy bag. We actually had a few of the same doctors, but our experiences were completely night and day. She had fluids delivered to her home. She was validated in her anxiety and were given disability accommodations. But me, I was just told to drink more water. And let me remind you, I don't even have the part of my colon that absorbs water, girl. Like, same doctor, same diagnosis, 2 completely different levels of care. The realization hit me so hard that I actually had to drop her as a client. Because how do you sit across from somebody with the same exact condition, the same scars, watching them get the resources that you've simply been denied? It actually messed me up mentally because it made me see how uneven the playing field really, really was. It's layers and layers of harm. Can I let you in on another little secret? Sometimes the racism shows up before you can even get to a doctor. After my first surgery, when my scar dehisced, my mom rushed me to the ER, pulled up to drop me off, and the triage nurse looked at me, a 23-year-old, fresh out of surgery and in actual pain, rolled her eyes, and then she muttered under her breath, "Ugh, here comes another pregnant Black teenager. Not, how can we help you? Not, sweet girl, are you okay? Just a straight stereotype, a dismissal, and a judgment immediately off the bat." That's what so many of us walk into when we seek care. Not a neutral ground, but a battlefield where we're already assumed to be lying, over-exaggerating, irresponsible, lazy, and or less than. That bias doesn't just hurt people's feelings. It actually changes the care that we get. It changes who lives and it changes who dies. How do we break this cycle though, y'all? What do we do with all of this information? Because I don't just share these stories to depress you. I share them because sunlight is the best disinfectant. We can fix this with education. Not some 1-hour tone-deaf PowerPoint on implicit bias, but an ongoing mandatory training that addresses how racism shows up in treatment, in prescribing, maternal care, and pain management. We fix this with accountability. Hospitals and clinics should track patient outcomes by race and be very transparent about them. If Black women are still dying at such a high rate in childbirth, hello, somebody got to be answering for that. We also fix this with community. Black patients, spoonies, allies alike, we need to share our stories because silence protects that system. That storytelling exposes all of it. And listen, I'm not saying that every doctor and every nurse and every hospital is like this. But what I am saying is that the system was not built with us in mind. And pretending otherwise is dangerous. As we close, I just want to say that this is not the end all be all. I'm not saying that this is every Black woman's experience, but it happened to be mine. It does happen to others, and it should not be happening at all. For Black spoonies, advocacy is life or death. It means asking the right questions, refusing dismissals, sometimes being labeled the mean Black girl, but it's because you know that you deserve better. And at the end of the day, you cannot pour from an empty spoon, so you shouldn't be expected to hand out your last one to a system that was never built for you in the first fucking place. Keep speaking up, keep demanding better, and keep protecting your peace because our stories aren't just personal. Baby, they're proof, and proof is power. We doing okay? You sure? Y'all still love me? Y'all, with everything going on in the world and just the experiences that have been happening more recently, I just felt like this was an appropriate time to discuss this. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I know that was heavy. I appreciate you taking those deep breaths with me. I appreciate the laughs. I'm going to leave you be. We're going to slide into this post roll, and I don't know. I just love y'all and appreciate y'all for tuning in. And that, my loves, is the scoop for today. If you want to stay connected, please follow me on Instagram at The Spoon Space. You can also subscribe on YouTube at Spoon Space or send your questions, concerns, and anonymous stories to spoonspaceconnect@gmail.com. Most importantly, though, don't forget to save a scoop for yourself because, as I always say, you can't pour from an empty spoon. I'm Sunny D, RNBSN. Thank you for tuning in to Spoon Space, and we'll see you in the next episode.